Welcome to Thriving with Chiropractic, where Dr. Mosier from Mosier Family Chiropractic shares a variety of topics designed to empower, inspire, and give hope. Take a few notes and enjoy the lesson.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Mosier here, and I am interviewing Ellen, my beautiful wife. Now, she is by far more of an expert on autism than I am. So when we were in St. Louis and I was finishing up my chiropractic degree, she was getting a master's in education, emphasis in autism. So this is going to be extremely exciting because of the success that we've had with folks that are on the spectrum in our office. But autism is a neurological disorder. But it's so much more than that, really, because it can affect families, it can affect so much in the school systems. So what I want to do is really ask Ellen a couple questions, or really a few questions, but one of the success stories that we have is Ryan. Ryan is about 22, 23 years old, and he has been with us for, I would say, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And the biggest, I remember this because during one of his massages, Gary, his dad, he has other sons, and they've grown up, they've learned to drive, they've gotten married, went on dates, and Gary just, he kind of broke down and said, Ryan's never gonna be able to do that. And so there's so much to this that affects so many people. So my first question to Ellen is, what is autism? How does it impact families? How does it impact school systems?
Okay, so that's a loaded question, and if I boil it down to the scientific definition, you basically already stated it, but that definition is a bioneurological developmental disability that generally appears before the age of 3. So if you're concerned about an individual or a child, you're going to be seeing these symptoms or kind of bullet points of what professionals are going to be looking at to discern if a child has autism. So how a physician is able to diagnose a child with autism is through the DSM-5, and that stands for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So this disorder is basically a catalog of all the mental disabilities out there, and autism spectrum disorder is in that realm. And so what they do, there's 3 main categories for this, and it's qualitative impairment in social interaction, qualitative impairments in communication, and restrictive, repetitive, and stereotype patterns. So anything like lining up cars, or pattern of routine, what they do first, then do second to begin their day and start their activities of the day. But they also, the DSM-5 requires that there are delays or abnormal functioning in the social interaction, in language used, and symbolic or imaginative play. So there's all these bullet points that a child must hit in order to be diagnosed with autism. And the thing is with autism, there's no special test, there's no DNA that they can pull and be like, okay, this child is diagnosed with autism. It's a different a form of diagnostic tools that they're going to have to use to be able to indicate if autism is what they're looking at when diagnosing a child with particular needs. And so autism is unique in that because it's found so young, you're looking at behaviors that you would seem normal to the typical child. And so looking at stats over the years, our professionals have gotten better at figuring out, okay, what are these symptoms and how are we going to diagnose these correctly? So as you've seen over the years, more, and this is kind of a controversial topic that I'm about to lead into, is more children now are being diagnosed. So the question then becomes, is autism more wide and we're having more cases of autism? Or are we equipped better to understand autism better, so we're diagnosing more children who had it that may have been falling through the cracks beforehand, before we have all this knowledge? So I will let you determine what that answer is, and I won't go into that further. But as far as stats, 1 in 54 children as of 2020 are diagnosed with autism. So if you scale it back, so that's in 2020. If you go back to 2014, that's not really that long ago, it was 1 in 68. And if you go back in 2009, which again isn't really that far off, it was 1 in 110. So there is obviously a growth in the diagnostic process. So again, boys are more likely to be diagnosed with autism than girls. Okay, so then the question bears, well, why? And that is a controversial subject as well. And the baseline for that is there's just really no known evidence that's been able to be researched well enough to determine that. And then 1 in 34 boys have autism, and then 1 in 145 girls are diagnosed with autism. So there you can kind of see the difference between boys. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's between boys and between girls. So I think as far as like research and scientific information, I think that covers it in a nutshell. Okay, this is very broad, and so one of the best ways for people to understand autism is just knowing the signs. Okay, so very simple here. I'm going to do some bullet points really quickly. I'm going to look at my notes here so that I'm giving you accurate information. So, lack of eye contact, not responding to their own name, and social withdrawal is a big one. Lack of gestures or pointing, and rarely imitates expressions. So if I'm smiling at Dr. Mosier, he's likely to catch on and smile back unless he's upset with me. These children are not going to imitate that gesture. And there's going to be delays in their motor development, and so those motor developments can be the fine tuning as far as like writing, or big, bending down to tie their shoes. So there's small and there's large motor development on that end as well. Even using stairs and how you alternate your feet. Children with autism will just step up, step up, step up, step up, and that's totally fine. It's just how their brain is wired is much different than someone else's. So then the last thing for the scientific part of this, and then I'll go into the schools and the home life, is the DSM-5. When it came out, I believe it came out in 2013, 2014, they switched over to the DSM-5, and one of the main switches with autism is that it is now, it used to be its own umbrella, and then it had levels of autism severity. Well, now there's a big umbrella for pervasive developmental disorders, and then that umbrella sends down an umbrella to autism spectrum disorders. And then there's 3 main columns, so to speak, underneath autism spectrum disorders, and those are autistic disorder, and then PDD-NOS, so that's pervasive developmental disorders not otherwise specified, and then the third one is Asperger's syndrome. And then under the main big umbrella is 2 other sidelines, and those are Rett's disorder and childhood degenerative disorder. Sorry about that. So if you're just looking at the autism, there is still a spectrum here, but they're wanting to make sure that we are differentiating from Rett's and the childhood disintegrative disorder. So there is the last that I'll talk about, the scientific information. So, do you want to hear about school information or home information?
Well, I want to hear both, but I remember when I was in Chiro school and you were, finishing up your degree, and you shared with me some of the stats, and I don't remember the stats, but I remember how concerning it is, how the divorce rates are just, it was near 100%. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'll talk about that. And then I do, of course, want to hear about the school too.
Yeah, so when a family is thrown this unique wrench into their lives with learning about this disorder, it can take a toll not only on the child, him or herself, but it also the relationships surrounding them. Okay, so there is a strain that's put on there because a lot of things have to take an effect. Therapies have to be in place, and I'll talk about that here soon, but early intervention is going to be the best intervention for a child with autism. And so a lot of times marriages get strained because the father's still trying to work. The mother may be going from a full-time working position to part-time or not working at all so that they can help fulfill the nurturing of this child. And so the marriage falls apart because there's less communication and a lot of unanswered and unknown questions, and that can be scary. And autism brings a lot of questions to the table, and if they're not answered and answered quickly, then something's going to break. And now, is that 100% all the time something's going to break? No, but something will give somewhere, and a lot of times it's in the marriage.
Absolutely. Which, makes me think about Ryan and his situation, because, Gary and Naomi are still married. They've been married for several years. I'm not sure how many years. Ryan's 23 and he's, I think, the youngest. So they've been married for a while, and Naomi has just now, and I think she's been putting off her schooling because of the situation, and now she's a respiratory therapist, and so it's neat to see that story, but there's so many stories that don't play out as well.
Right. And with Ryan, he's got a great support system. And his brothers, they understand the situation, and they support Gary and Naomi taking that extra time to be with Ryan and to develop him into the young man that he is today. So that's totally important. So, you want to hear about my school perspective on this?
I want to hear about it.
You want to hear about it? Okay. Well, school is an interesting facet. So, when a child with autism is in school, there's one or two ways to help this child out. So a lot of times early intervention is best. So anything that can be done at home, therapies in the home, therapies at school where they're pulled aside and they're working on motor skills and sensory learning, which is wonderful for children with autism. So they have that opportunity. So if it's caught early on enough, and all these symptoms are proving that they're going to be diagnosed with autism, if you're working with them early, that is going to be key. So once those are put into place, even at home before they're school aged, then they're going to have a higher success rate in the school setting. And our schools are good about being aware about these disorders, and it's not only to autism, but just any disorder that is affecting a child, is that they're going to put in an intervention plan. And so some schools are able to fully integrate the child inclusively into the general classroom. Some have a special education classroom where this child will go to throughout their day to target specific areas of their schoolwork that they need more help with. And then other children who are of higher level autism will go into the special education classroom their full day. But integrating them into every facet of the school system is going to be to their betterment as well. And so each child with a disorder should be given an IEP, and that's an individualized education program, and that is a plan for their success. So you never build an IEP and set too high of expectations. You're going to set them up for success. So IEPs are contained of a multitude of goals that the child is to try to work on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, and they're revisited it should be revisited often. I would say every week to almost every day, and you're going to be making sure that child is pushing forward and meeting those goals. And if they're not, you're going to readjust your curriculum to where they are meeting those goals, because you want the best for that child and so that they are achieving. So when you come and you have your group meeting and you're huddled around the table, that there's a lot of things to be celebrating. And so that is nothing is more pleasing to a parent when they come to a meeting like that. And there is just an enormous amount of celebrations to be happy for this child achieving those goals.
So you're saying there's really a team. It's a team effort for these kiddos.
Oh yeah.
And young adults.
Yeah, normally these IEP meetings, there's generally 4, 5, 6 people involved at that meeting actively. And sometimes they won't even hold the meeting unless everybody can attend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Something that's, I would say, probably a little controversial. There's this whole thing with politically correct, and you'd probably agree, I'm not the best at that.
Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
But I'm talking about labeling. Let me use an analogy. Hi, I'm Bobby and I'm autistic. That's a common phrase, but it would be absurd for me to say, hi, I'm Chris and I'm carpal tunneled. That's absurd. And when you think about labeling and you think about identity, so for myself, I'll just, I'm a chiropractor. I'm a good chiropractor. I help a lot of people. That's the identity that I bestow on myself. So these kids, when they're just saying, I'm autistic, then there's a whole myriad of those things. It's like you would never, you'd be upset. I would be upset if I saw a parent telling their child, hey, you're dumb, you're never gonna do anything, bad things. And so I'm not saying you're autistic is bad, it's another label. You're becoming identified by the diagnosis. And just like Ryan is a really cool dude. I really enjoy seeing him. I don't see Ryan as Ryan, the autistic kid. I see Ryan as Ryan, and so what do you think about this identity, this labeling?
So, a lot. Again, you're asking a full question here with a full answer. So, when I was getting my master's, one of the main things, it was like almost right out of the gate, one of the first things that our professors taught us is they said, everybody is a person, and you do not want to be identified by a fault or something that you're not proud of. And so they made it very clear that if you're working with an individual who has autism, that is exactly what you're working with. So they instructed us to not even use the term autistic, and because a person who has autism is still a person. It's funny, and I'm going to kind of veer a little bit here, is if somebody is older and you see that they have hearing aids in, and you're like, oh, well, I need to speak louder to them because they're older, they probably can't hear me. Well, if you back up your thought process, yes, they may be older, but they have their hearing aids in so that you can speak to them normally. And a child with autism is very the same way. Just because they have this disorder, they want to be spoke to in the same very manner as their fellow peers in school, as their parents at home. And so they really laid that on thick, Bobby is Bobby for who Bobby is, but Bobby does have autism. But autism does not define who Bobby is by any stretch of the imagination. So if we were ever in a group project or something, we said something incorrectly, boy, they were hot on us. to make sure we framed our wording correctly, to center our hearts too on who we're serving and who we're helping and who we're trying to better understand so we can reach them in the way that's best for them. So labeling has its whole gamut of opinions and how people want to talk to people with autism, but to me it's very important that you still see them as the person that they are. God didn't make them any different than us. They still have things they want to do. I'm certain they sit there and think, boy, I wish I could drive that car. You know?
That's true.
Yeah.
So we went over the science, we went over some stats, we went over some, the labeling, which is a big deal. Why is a massage therapist and a chiropractor passionate about autism? And I'll just be honest, we don't have boys that have autism. We don't have any family members that have autism. Unless there's any distant ones on your side. I'm trying to think. No. We've both worked. I remember a summer job working with kids with autism. You obviously have your degree and you've worked in that world, but why are we bringing this up as our professions? How does massage therapy help?
Sure. So, this goes back down to anatomy and how our body has been built and made wonderfully by a creator who knew exactly what he was doing, and he made our bodies to work in equilibrium, right? So there's nothing to be said differently on that, right, Doc?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
so basically, there is a modality of massage therapy, and it's called craniosacral therapy. And it's very gentle. It does not hurt, and it does not look like what you would expect a typical massage to look like. We think of a standard massage as a massage that you use lotion and oils, and you are doing a rub down. So that would be what you would think, right? And I know it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But with craniosacral therapy, it's very simple and it's very calming. Would you say calming?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with light touch, what you're basically trying to do, and here's my depiction. So you've got your spinal cord, and then the casing around the spinal cord is your spinal column, so your vertebrae. That's protecting your spinal cord. Now, in between there's a fluid, and that fluid is called cerebral spinal fluid. Right?
Yes.
Okay, making sure I'm getting this straight for y'all. Okay, when there is a malfunction, and Doc is going to talk to you about this later, a misalignment in your spine, the cerebral spinal fluid that should be going up and down at a nice rate with no interruptions should be circulating. And that's creating your body to operate at optimum function.
Yeah.
But when there is interference or something out of a line, a massage for craniosacral therapy through the technique of it can help balance out that cerebral spinal fluid, because typically in a person who has autism, that cerebral spinal fluid is stopped or irregular, and it's not a fluid happening. So with the technique, it helps fluid that out and get a good natural pattern. And so you've got to be very in tune with the person's body to be able to feel that rhythm and where it's not moving and right and properly. So as far as massage therapy, yes, a person with autism can get so much from a typical massage, yes. But if you want to particularly work on the cerebral spinal fluid through craniosacral therapy, you're going to see a great a great increase of better mood, better life quality. They're going to possibly talk more, because children with autism or anybody with autism struggles with communication, and they have particulars on what they like to eat. And so you may see a change in all of these behaviors or symptoms of their autism.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree, because you got to have that fluid, because really that fluid's engulfing both the brain and the spinal cord, and it just has to move. So, you know, your nervous system, it uses energy. It utilizes ketones, glucose, right? And so, if it's bogged down because it's subluxated, misaligned, or if the fluid flow is not moving, then you have all this metabolic waste that can't be cycled through. And if it doesn't get cycled through, then you have, like you said, all these behaviors and verbal issues. And that's really, that kind of dives back over to me on the chiropractic end. You know, I find and detect these subluxations, these misalignments, and I correct them. The biggest one, especially for Ryan, is his upper cervicals, right? We're looking at C1, which is right where that brainstem is, and so you unlock that, and that really allows the ventricles of that cerebral spinal fluid to unlock. So
now, can you show where C1 is, like using my neck? Can you show?
So, you know, you got her ears, which they're pretty ears.
That was not necessary.
Not necessary,
Yeah.
okay. So you got this mastoid bone right here, and then you just go slide on down, and that's the side end of C1. And you can go right in here on the back of her neck, and that's where C1 is. So I don't know if the camera angle is close enough for you to see where I'm pointing, but it's way, way up here. It's the top bone in the neck. You know, speaking of Ryan, it's been a while since he's gotten a massage from you. He's on our maintenance program. I see really the whole family, Ryan, Gary, and Naomi, every week. And I get them checked, and I make sure everything's going good. And you know, when you see someone that often, the change, you know, happens over time, right? It's just like seeing someone in your household lose a bunch of weight. You know, it's like, are they losing weight? Because I see him so much.
Right.
You see Ryan more on a periodic basis. So what kind of changes have you noticed with Ryan over the last 2.5 years?
Well, you know, Ryan was really anxious to come into our office. It's a new facility, new people, and that is big with somebody who has autism. They like to go where they're comfortable, and that is like any of us. When we go to a new store or a new event, you don't know what to expect, so there's really no difference there other than he has autism, and a lot of things can trigger him because he's insecure. So the main thing was just to get him acclimated to his environment, know where he's going to go, and who he's going to see. And once he got that rhythm down, he's been phenomenal. And then to add the actual treatment from chiropractic and massage, and actually, I know you're going to talk about this here in a second, but he does about once a month a foot detox. And so adding these ways to help his body center himself is just allowing him to have optimum function. So he's less anxious in our office. He's happy. He'll tell us hi and he'll tell us bye. He'll give us fist pumps because we're awesome like that. Boom. And so he's become very acclimated to us. And I think he sits well and does well through his adjustment. I mean, he knows what to expect.
Absolutely. He hops right on the table. He knows exactly what to do. And, you know, and maybe this is in my head, but I can understand Ryan a whole lot more. It was, when we first met, he was pretty nonverbal, and he's not carrying on long, drawn-out conversations. You know, he calls himself Captain Ryan,
That's right.
And he can say that, and every time after his adjustments, they go for fudge rounds.
So you always have to ask, now, Ryan, what's next? And you know he's going to go get fudge rounds.
Yep.
It's a big thing, and you celebrate that.
Yes.
So.
Yes, they're always going to go to the store right after getting adjusted. I'm glad you brought up detox. And detox, I'm actually going to do a longer talk on detox and our detox packs, plus the detox baths. And I'm pointing over here because we're in the massage house and I'm pointing at them right now. But those are phenomenal. I remember Ryan, when he first did it, his feet felt better. His behaviors, which were already good, just got even better just right after that simple detox bath. And I will admit, those detox baths, they pull so much toxin and junk out of your feet that they get a little grody.
They do. And I get the pleasure of cleaning those afterwards, which is not a problem because I know the benefit and the what that patient or client is getting out of those is way more important than me scrubbing on them. So I'll scrub them all day if I have to. So
the last thing I just wanted to mention in regards to autism, because we have to cover supplements, right?
yeah.
You know, because, and many of you may not know this, but you have just as much neurological wiring in your gut than as you do your brain. It's really, they call it the second brain, right? And for so many kids with autism, they have leaky gut syndrome. And that's commonly associated with gluten intolerance, and gluten is in your breads and things like that. So,
everywhere, even in things you didn't think gluten's in, it's in it.
That's true. So for folks that are on the spectrum, well, really all of us, but especially for those folks, you know, getting away from the bread, you know, getting the gluten out of there, getting the casein, the dairy products out of there can phenomenally help. But there's a couple, and I had to write these down. So calcium and magnesium, and coenzyme Q10, there we go, and vitamin B complex. So those three categories really help your neurological development, really help your brain function. So this is huge for those folks. And then iron, and this was actually, I didn't know this until I prepared for this. 77% of children with autism are iron deficient. So an iron supplement helps them with sleep. So that's pretty neat. And then vitamin D helps protect against muscle weakness, which ultimately goes back to Ryan, because, Gary, he started in our office first. And the funny thing is, how he started in our office is due to a local nurse practitioner said, hey, you need to go. Because there was MDs telling Gary, don't see a chiropractor, they can't do anything for you. But when he saw the nurse practitioner and she said, no, go find a good chiropractor, and he ended up coming to our office. We've had great success with him, and he was concerned about Ryan's feet because, like you said, their gait, their walking, everything is altered because neurologically everything is slightly altered. And so that's where we started with Ryan. And then the side benefit, of course, was seeing Ryan really thrive. And this is something that Naomi and Gary sent us on Ryan. And so I'll read this to you. Since Ryan has started going to the chiropractor, his moods have been better. There are times that he gets excited to be adjusted after a long weekend. He enjoys other services offered too. He likes the massages. I think he really likes the massages from you.
No.
I think he likes you. And last time he got a massage, he laughed the entire time. I don't know who laughed more, him or Sarah. So Sarah has been taking over his massages now. He likes getting the extra bit of attention too. And this ultimately, this goes back to the schools too. You said there's a team of 6, 7, 8 folks that are really working to help these kids. And I think as a community, we want to continue to serve these kids because the numbers do keep rising, and we're here to serve.
Yep.
Any final thoughts?
No. Just if you have any questions and you see me or you see Doc and you want to know more, obviously we can only fit so much into a Facebook Live session for, Thriving with Chiropractic, but, we're an open book. So if you have questions and you want to ask those, you can comment below and we'll get back with you. these are important topics that Doc likes to cover, and this one has a special place in my heart. And so if you know of anybody even who has autism, or parents who have children with autism, and you see that they could be benefited, which we would say that yes, they would benefit from it, but just let us know. We can give them a health certificate and just have them come in and meet us, and we will help them out.
That'd be great. And a simple thing that you guys can do is just like this post, share it. Let's really get the word out there. So, Thank you for joining us today.
All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Have you ever wondered why we are so passionate about serving our community? It's because years ago, Ellen used to suffer with severe migraines, and we were actually told by the medical community that there's nothing they can do, that she was going to have to deal with this for the rest of her life. Luckily, we discovered chiropractic care, and it actually changed our lives, and she no longer has to deal with migraines anymore. I know what it's like to be pushed away by the medical community. I know what it's like, and I know the pain of the statement, you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. Under this roof, you will be treated like family. Our purpose is to empower, inspire, and give hope to those who are broken, battered, and bruised. Because an empowered person can move mountains and make waves not only in their lives, but in the lives of those around them. We also don't want to just externally motivate you, but internally move you. Because we all have a story worth sharing. And then there's hope. Hope is a light. And for some of us, that light is looking pretty dim. Due to the condition that we're dealing with, or whatever that we're dealing with, it leads to a diminishing light. But what we specialize in is finding the problem and fixing the problem. Because our vision is to be a lighthouse of hope, allowing our light to shine through. And no matter how busy it looks, we are like church. We can always squeeze one more in. Therefore, our mission is simple. It's one more. One more mom, one more dad, one more grandparent, one more child, one more life saved by chiropractic care.
If you found value in this video, please comment and let us know your biggest takeaway. We also ask that you don't keep this information to yourself. We ask that you share it with your friends and family by simply clicking the share button below.